I'm Scott Allen Miller, and this is Sam IT on YouTube, and today we're going to talk about how you can look at job requirements and job postings and look for telltale signs that something's wrong based on a mismatch of requirements. Now, we've been talking about jobs a lot in the last few days, and what we're going to talk about today is a little bit more specific, and we looked at how job postings are mostly fake, and this is beyond question. But if you haven't spent a lot of time looking at jobs, or you haven't spent a lot of time interviewing, you may be lacking in confidence as to how you can tell when a specific job is a bit questionable. Great. So, when we look at job requirements, in theory, they should tell us things that are pretty obvious. The job title, for example, should match what the job description is. This is just a no-brainer. If a job has levels, for example, they say it's a junior position, but the pay is for entry level, or more likely the job says senior, and yet the pay is not even close to industry standard, we can be pretty sure that something is amiss. That doesn't mean the job is completely fake, but they may be catfishing you. You need to really look and say, if a job posting is real, chances are it's going to make sense. That's the bottom line. Common sense is the best way to identify what's going on with your job postings. If something looks wrong, it's wrong. Because good jobs, hiring people is one of the most important things that a company does. It's also one of the most expensive. Hiring a person is probably the biggest individual purchase that any company makes throughout its corporate lifetime. So getting that right matters to everyone. Getting the wrong person is insanely expensive, and it takes a long time, especially in something like IT, where hiring good and bad people can take an extremely long cycle and a lot of internal resources, and when you get it wrong, you're in big trouble for a really long time. These are things that companies appreciate and need to get right, and they know they need to get it right. So companies that mean to actually hire you, they put some effort into it. They aren't taking it casually. They aren't just slapping together a bunch of words they've heard. They're not letting a secretary or a receptionist write up the job description. They have somebody who knows what they're doing take care of that, whether it's the CEO themselves or a CIO, and if they don't have those people, anyone who's hiring seriously is going out to find someone who understands those things and having them write it up. And in most cases, the problems are not technical. In some, certainly, there are technical things to look for, and they are telltale signs. But most of the time, people will make excuses that, well, they don't have a technical person, that's why they're hiring you, so the technical stuff is wrong. That is not how it works. One, the technical stuff shouldn't be there if they don't have the technical expertise. Because if they don't have that expertise in-house and they're just making stuff up, they know that they're making stuff up and that they're sabotaging the company. So they're not going to do that if they're serious. And two, most of the mistakes we see aren't technical in nature. They're fundamental adulting mistakes. They have English mistakes, they have pay mistakes, they have market mistakes, they have job requirement mistakes that we often give a lot of credit to people and say, well, in technical spaces they don't know what to do, and this is simply wrong. People still have common sense, they still know business basics, they still know honesty, even if they don't know technical things. Associating those things with technical is just kind of weird. So things that are really obviously wrong. For example, using terms like engineer when they mean administrator. This one's a little bit softer, but it still applies. Engineers design things. Administrators run operations. They're two different roles. If you want to give specific titles like that, you need to use the title that's real. And mixing them, while there are jobs that mix them, they should be clear that they know they're mixing them, not just throwing words around. And you can tell this from how you read it, right? Something, you may need an administrative title just because it's the titles they use, but when you look through the description, it's clear that they mean a mix of administration and engineering or whatever, right? I don't want to put too much stress on that titles mean exactly what they say all the time. They should, but they don't. And there are a lot of roles that need to be mixed, and that's okay, but they shouldn't have titles that are really overly specific when that isn't what they intend to hire you for. So that's important. But bigger is really commonly we'll see highly specific titles in one technical area that then require something completely different, or really unusual levels of things. For example, they want a junior networking person, but then on the side they need to be super experienced in something unrelated to networks. If they needed someone super experienced in something other than networks, chances are that's the thing the title should have been around. Does that make sense? The thing that you're going to be compensated for, the thing that they are hiring based on, should be the thing the title at least kind of reflects. So if you need a little bit of networking experience, but a lot of systems experience, and you should be a senior Linux admin, but we're gonna call it a junior network tech, something's really wrong, because that makes no sense at all. And it's obvious that it makes no sense, and yet people often overlook it and say, well, technical. But it doesn't require technical to know that's wrong. I need someone to drive me, I need a taxi driver, must have commercial airline pilot's license. Obviously, you're just making that up. You don't have to know anything about cars or airplanes to know that's wrong, right? And that's the kind of thing that's going on in IT. We should never give people a free pass when they're hiring. Remember, this is the person hiring you, right? If they don't know more than you, you've got a problem. If you look at a job requirement and you can tell that something's wrong, something's wrong. They should have every possibility of looking at that and getting it right as much as you, and more, plus more time and more incentive to do so. If they can't be bothered, something's wrong, right? Red flags all over the place. It's not always that it's fake, it could be something else, but one way or another, something is really wrong. Remember, these are people who are going to interview you, and later there's a very high chance that they'll tell you you didn't pass the interview because of some technical reason. How can there be a technical reason if they aren't even in a position to be able to write what the requirements are, let alone know the technical underpinnings of those requirements? Something doesn't match up. Pay rates, same thing. Duties, same thing. Too many things get mixed together. But the biggest thing is common sense. Read the descriptions. Do things fit together? What kind of role would put those things together, and why would any given person have those experience levels? Now, it is important to remember that there are two different portions of most job postings. One is the requirements, and one is the job description or task descriptions. If they have a job that simply requires a lot of weird things being mixed together, that's fine. Companies need that stuff, right? Oh, we need a senior Linux administrator who also does a little bit of Cisco work on the side and can fix printers, because those are the things we have in our office and they need to be fixed. Okay, now that's fine as a job description. But when you're coming up with a title, it needs to either reflect the thing that you're doing the most of, or that you're going to be paid around, which in this case would be Linux Systems Administrator, or it needs to reflect the fact that it's a mixed bag of things, and it's an IT generalist or IT tech or something of that nature. And the pay needs to reflect that the Linux skill is the thing that's going to pay the bills, and the requirements need to reflect the fact that someone who is a senior Linux administrator doesn't need any experience with Cisco and doesn't need to know anything about copiers to be able to do that job, and those things should not be requirements. That's insane, right? If you get a senior person in any of the IT fields, right, you have a senior Linux admin or a senior Cisco engineer, it doesn't matter. That senior Cisco engineer can pick up Linux in a weekend. And anyone in any of those things can change the toner on your copier. They don't need experience having done it. That's really important when you're hiring people at a certain level, which isn't very high, mid-level at most, maybe juniors. You're really at a point where, yes, you may want specific skills in exactly the thing you need, but anything that's lower than that, you don't care if they actually have experience in it. You may say, wow, you have exactly Linux Senior, Cisco Mid, and you know about printers? Awesome, you're the perfect fit ever. They can tell that by looking at the job description and say, I just happen to fit this perfectly, I need to take this job. That's, again, fine, but that's not how job descriptions are normally written. You'll find that people will call it a printer job. Welcome to Printer Management 101. We're looking for a junior print manager. And then, but we have this requirement of a PhD and a Linux Senior Systems Administrator with 25 years of experience. These things don't match, and they obviously don't match. And another one that's really big is people looking for a number of years of experience on things that don't exist. We need 5 years experience on Windows 2016. Obviously, they're never going to hire that position. It can't be a requirement. Either the job is overtly fake or completely incompetent in how it's written. But in either case, it's not real. It may be that they just put bad requirements on there, but it doesn't change the fact that it's a bad requirement and something is obviously wrong. Probably that they just don't care about hiring the position. So I hope this is helpful. There's a lot of just, I know, look at job listings, but look at them with a critical eye. Think about how marketing may be being used to mislead you, how they may be trying to take advantage of you. Remember that the vast majority of job postings are fake. Don't go in with the assumption that they're real. Go in with the assumption that they're fake, and this will make things a lot easier for you. And remember that you just have to pick these things out, because you can't spend a lot of time trying to get a fake job, because it won't work out for you. You will burn out and it's very possible you will never speak to a company that's actually trying to hire you. So the faster you can avoid fake ones, the more time you have to focus on the real ones. Remember to like and subscribe, and you can sponsor us on Patreon here on the Sam IT channel.